at Diego Martinez's 5-Star Automotive in San Bernardino. 5-Star Automotive, where you'll get a great experience, and home of the $15.99 oil change. That's right, just $15.99. They specialize in transmissions, brake repair, AC, and many other repairs, all with a lifetime warranty on parts and labor. Diego knows when your auto needs 5-star attention, it's never convenient. He offers a 12-month interest-free auto repair loan on major auto repairs with no money down. He'll even throw in free towing and a 10% discount for his neighbors in the 909 who work for the city and county of San Bernardino. Call 909-387-0770. That's 387-0770. Your neighbors at 909 West 2nd Street in San Bernardino.
Kcaa.
As the owner of my business, I wear a lot of hats. I'm accounting, sales, and so much more. But I don't know marketing.
Let Dex Media be your marketing department. Our team can create a digital plan for you with everything from search to social. Contact Dex Media, that's DEX Media, to get found, get chosen, and get talked about.
Whoa, that's a job for cleanup, which would be me.
Call 844-230-3436 or visit dexmedia.com today.
Riverside Municipal Airport would like to now honor every American who has served in our armed forces.
More than 1.5 million Americans have given their lives while wearing the uniform of one of our nation's armed services. Anyone engaged in military service must be prepared to endure hardship, even death, in a time of war. Throughout our history, America's veterans have willingly made these sacrifices for their country. On November 11th, we salute veterans across the land and right here at home.
This Veterans Day, Riverside Municipal Airport salutes Americans' veterans, honoring all who have served. Riverside Airport, itself a Civil Air Patrol site, works with 2 universities offering aviation degree programs, tower-controlled ILS, 6 flight schools, and an A&P school. Riverside Municipal also salutes the city's own National Cemetery. To all who have slipped the surly bonds of earth, a hearty thank you from Riverside Municipal Airport.
Kcaa Loma Linda.
Hello. It is time for Empire Talks Back. I'm Wallace Allen. Empire Talks Back brought to you by Covered California, helping keep Californians insured with perfect insurance. Covered California is your marketplace for keeping yourself aware of the great opportunities for health insurance, brought to you, bringing you West Side Story newspaper. Also, let's do this again. We are really, really, really happy this morning. I want to be glad. I want to let you know how happy we are to have you here with us on Empire Talks Back. And I want to say it one more time. Empire Talks Back is brought to you by Covered California, helping Californians get brand name health insurance, by West Side Story newspaper, the soul of the Empire, and by the Improve Association for Referrals That Help. The Northwest Project Redevelopment Committee is inviting everybody to come to their meeting tomorrow night. It's a very important meeting. Just had a couple of people run for election to the 6th Ward. There was not a clear-cut winner. There's going to be a runoff for that election, and I'm sure that the people at the PAC meeting tomorrow, Monday, will be discussing that and other things of importance to residents of the west side of San Bernardino. You'll want to make that meeting Monday, November 9th at 6:30 p.m. at the New Life Building, 1505 West Highland Avenue in the city of San Bernardino. We are bringing this program to you from the city of San Bernardino. Why? Because the city of San Bernardino is probably very much like the city that you live in. We've got our problems, we've got our issues, but we, unlike many other cities, are the gateway to Southern California. San Bernardino's got the beautiful mountains, surrounded by world-class freeways, and surrounded by a little reputation of fighting their way out of bankruptcy. And everybody that's in the city of San Bernardino is somebody that I know working hard to try to straighten that circumstance out and, quite frankly, take advantage of what looks like a new beginning, an opportunity for entrepreneurs, an opportunity for people with vision to step up and move to a city, an area that is on the move. There's a big plan to actually make some changes in the place that I'm sitting in right now, which is the Carousel Mall, San Bernardino's entryway if you get off the freeway at, 2nd Street. Well, we've got a mall there that isn't very busy, except for the fact that we do broadcast Kcaa radio programs from here. And there's a few other small businesses, but folks, this is an opportunity setting, and I understand they're looking at placing maybe an entire little village down here. That would be exciting, a lot of jobs, a lot of opportunity, and there's always going to be people who say, well, it's not quite like the old days. Well, most things aren't. And when change occurs, the old days they've already gone, and you can figure that the things that made them happy for you are gone. But tomorrow is not a day that you will use to jump off the cliff. Believe me, you'll want to be here, and you'll want to be taking part with all of the things that are helping us advance the society here. We've got great people in the Inland Empire, all over the Inland Empire. And San Bernardino is one of the heart and soul spots for the Inland Empire. There's another great meeting tomorrow that you'll want to attend, that I would like to see you attend, especially if you're concerned about things in life here in the city and immediate area. Dr. Brian Haynes from Cal State University, San Bernardino, he's the Vice President of Student Affairs. He will be the speaker tomorrow as he addresses the severe drop in African American student enrollment at the Cal State University San Bernardino. Now, he'll be attending the Westside Action Group meeting to make that discussion. Westside Action Group has met every Monday for the last 35 years. They meet at the San Bernardino Boys and Girls Club, 1180 West 9th Street. The issue of enrollment, the issue of young black students attending college certainly is an important one. We know that education is one of the gateways to having a high quality of life. It's also one of the gateways to being able to successfully help America move forward in our quest to provide high quality of life for everyone in our borders. And certainly you can see that we're not satisfied with keeping our nose inside of our borders. And so hopefully the things that we'll be exporting will include education, will include opportunity, will include the concept of equal access as we move our physical soldiers and our emotional soldiers around the planet. We'd like to be sure that we're here to help. Now, attending the Westside Action Group, once again, that meeting is open to the public. We've got a big issue, low enrollment of African American students at Cal State San Bernardino, and we are wanting to change that. I think they are saying that the student enrollment has dropped from over 12% in 2007 to under 6% this year. That translates to an enrollment of over 2,000 students fewer, from 2,000 to fewer than 1,200 black students on the campus. That drop occurred even though the Inland Empire has the second highest African American high school enrollment in the state. So we have a real issue, a real opportunity to make something happen. Once again, that meeting begins at noon, as it has for the last 35 years, in the city of San Bernardino, the West Side Action Group. And despite some rumors that, it only welcomes men, that's not true. We would have done nothing were it not for the women who support the men of the West Side Action Group. So please come out, be part of that. I see we've got Mr. Jamal Lilly on the line with us this morning. Mr. Lilly, how are you today?
I'm doing well, Wallace. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you very well, as a matter of fact. Very well.
All right.
Yeah, and
I'm well. How are you?
Yeah. So Jamal, how are things going with you? Are you Did you get a chance to vote on November 3rd?
Absolutely.
Very
I had
good.
to go all the way up the mountain. My voice in the wilderness up there to the alternative viewpoint on the ballot. But a couple of important things involving water that definitely needed to be dealt with, and fire protection. So yes.
Very good. California is going to make it easier, or is looking into making it easier for people to vote with the mail-in. Vote by mail. It seems to be a large.
I don't trust that process.
You don't trust that process. I mean, you're talking about the mailman. I mean, the mailman, the United States mail guy has been pretty dependable. Might not be very successful with the financials of our operation, but they usually seem to be pretty dependable. What's your objection to a vote by mail?
Well, the whole thing comes down to not the services and the integrity of the service provided by the Postal Service, and to do with once those ballots arrive at the registrar and what takes place with them to ensure that they are counted the same type of site as normal ballots that come through on election night are treated with.
Well, now,
that would be a separate show. We've talked about several of these issues in the past. We have issues here just in our local counties, Riverside and San Bernardino, from the recent past, where absentee ballots and mail-in ballots have been left on the uncounted scrap heap or challenged and never counted because some candidate wanted to challenge the authenticity or veracity of the content of those ballots. And by the time the controversy was settled, the election had already been called. Those are issues that I think we could get into and would make an interesting show.
Yeah, well, what we'll do to help with that, when we do produce that show, we'll bring someone in from the county's registrar of voters, either Riverside or San Bernardino or both, because that is a question. That's why some ballots are called provisional ballots, and there seems to be the possibility, as you say, of treating ballots differently, the ones that are done in the polling place. Certainly we have an understanding of what we expect there. But you're right, in terms of the mail-in, I'm not sure what happens with those, how quickly they are counted, or how they even consider them in the pile. Because there are some votes that they only count if there's a question mark, or I'm not going to try to explain it, because I've already said it, and I do believe myself when I say I don't understand all of what they do, so I'm not going to project any real deal on that. At some point today, go ahead, I'm sorry.
It just comes down to, everyone's vote should count on time. And it's much more difficult to ensure that occurs when you don't actually show up to the polls and use an ink and paper modality to cast your vote.
There's something to be concerned about. I know that in the city of San Bernardino's council races, the 6th Ward and the 7th Ward are going to have a runoff. So what we're going to do is take a very short break. When we come back, we'll talk a little bit about the 2 runoff elections in the city of San Bernardino, the 6th Ward and the 7th Ward. The voter turnout was very low, but at the same time, it was consistently low. So this is Empire Talks Back. I'm Wallace Allen on the phone with Mr. Jamal Lilly. We're going to take a short break, and we'll be right back discussing votes, who votes, and the effect of those votes.
Respectfully, I say to thee, I'm aware that you're cheating when no one makes me feel like you do. Upside down.
Publish your legal notice in West Side Story newspaper. For the best service and the best rates, call 909-384-8131. Publishing legal notices in the city and county of San Bernardino since 1990. West Side Story provides friendly expert service. Call 909-384-8131 to benefit from budget-friendly rates. Whether a fictitious business name, a name change, a divorce summons, or any other legal or public notice, call West Side Story newspaper 909-384-8131. 909-384-8131. 909-384-8131. That's 909-384-8131.
This is LeGrant, 30-second radio for Covered California. Spot title, Imagine 1A. IS key code Kcaa 108 6000.
Imagine that you're among the 4 out of 5 people who received help paying for quality health coverage through Covered California at the lowest possible cost. Imagine seeing a doctor for everyday aches and pains, unexpected emergencies, and preventative care. Imagine receiving help finding a health plan that's absolutely right for you and your family. Imagine not having to imagine.
Covered California. It's more than just health care. It's life care. Visit CoveredCA.com to find free, local, in-person help or enroll online by December 15th to have coverage by January 1st.
Wishing for a little bit more information? You'll get it all here on KCAA Radio.
Round and round you're turning me. I say to thee respectfully, upside down you're turning me.
Empire Talks back every Sunday here on KCAA Radio. And, of course, we are available on your archives. All you have to do is come to kcaaradio.com, and you can hear any show anytime that you would like to. We do appreciate the fact that you are listening. And we do want to remind you that Covered California is there to help you get the insurance, health insurance that you need. This is the enrollment period. You will want to give them a call and be sure that your status for health coverage is covered by Covered California. I'm speaking with Mr. Jamal Lilly on the phone here. We're talking about elections here in the city of San Bernardino. 6th Ward, 7th Ward council seats were contested vigorously, and we're going to have a runoff in those 2 council wards. Basine Littlefield Richard received 423 votes in the 6th Ward, and Roxanne Williams received 401 votes. The total votes in the ward was 1,132. I understand that there's quite a few more eligible voters in that ward, some 12,000. And I don't know, was there on November 3rd, was there a cash giveaway somewhere where people just needed to go there instead of to go vote? What are we doing there? And the same thing with the 7th Ward. We had Mr. Jim Mulvihill receive 489 votes, representing 28%, and Mr. Scott Beard received 375 votes. And there was a total of 1,745 votes in that ward. So, in both cases, there is a large number of people who have not come out to vote. I would be encouraged if I were either of the candidates in knowing that there are many people that they have not reached and many people who did not come out and express themselves. I guess their expression was, well, whatever else happens is okay, because when you don't vote, your vote is one that says you'll accept whatever else is being done. But this turnout, Mr. Lilly, what do you think about that? I don't know the percentage.
Well, first of all, voter apathy is new, but in San Bernardino, we have the compounded problem of the bankruptcy pall, I guess you would call it. The idea that the city is so dysfunctional and has been for quite a while, as evidenced by severe financial insolvency, to the point that a lot of people, I think, now have lost faith in the ability of the government to right itself or even right by the people. I've noticed that this, one of the runoffs at least, the central issue, I think it's Mulvihill's district, the 7th Ward, the central issue seems to be his handling of the bankruptcy matter. And then I think Mr. Beard, being one of the people that will be engaged in the runoff, he contributed to the original crafting of the bankruptcy plan, and now he's failing to claim that he had anything to do with it or support it in any way, and he's piling on to Mulvihill and so on and so forth. And it's just a big disingenuous exercise. People see this, the disingenuousness, they see the borderline dishonesty, and they just turn their noses up and don't participate when they see things like that. And it's very acute. The problem's very acute in San Bernardino.
You know, and somehow it's kind of like the idea of dropping out of society. You can't drop out because there's a classification for the dropouts. You can't not vote and say, well, you know, I don't have anything to do with it, I'm not going to vote. Because your lack of vote is actually an encouraging vote for whomever actually gets the count. Non-participation is participation at its worst. I don't know what we need to do to get people involved.
There's a reason why we used to have civic pride events and things like that in San Bernardino. I can remember as a child, and even up until my teen years, San Bernardino was considered an all-American city for several years. And those things mean something not in the reality of whatever bacteria are, but in the civic pride that they foster and engender. The idea that this is a place that people want to be. Most people now feel like they are trapped in San Bernardino, stuck in San Bernardino. And unfortunately, our schools, our churches, our media don't provide the populace with a means by which they feel they can affect the process and turn it into something favorable. We don't know civics. We don't know how to engage with the city council. We don't know how to hold our elected officials accountable. And that's the collective fault of various institutions and the people that run them. That has to be changed. I mean, this is not unique to San Bernardino, but it's
certainly low voter turnout is not unique to San Bernardino, but there are some things unique about San Bernardino. One is if you wake up sad and you walk out into the yard and you, on a day like today, look north, south, east, and west, you've got to be encouraged. I mean, the beauty of the mountains, the beauty of the skyline, the beauty of knowing that, and you should know, you've got world-class freeways. San Bernardino is about to bounce back. This is
absolutely.
This is one of the most beautiful places on the planet. The fact that it's reached the bottom should be encouraging to most people. But then again, if you are of an attitude with no vision and you don't have a job and feeding your family is a problem, certainly it's hard to to see the light when there's so much oppression there. But we've got many places, many people that are providing food, which isn't a good sign, but it's a good sign. The fact that you need to feed people isn't a good sign, but the fact that you're able to feed people is a good sign. The fact that you have to feed people isn't a good sign, but the fact that you want to and willing to do so is a good sign. So we've got to look for the good inside of the bad. I'm just impressed every day with how beautiful the Inland Empire is. And I'm also impressed with the fact that we have people here, the talent pool, according to our economists, is fairly low in terms of the education. But then the potential for education is so great. Our high schools, once again, there's a meeting tomorrow at the West Side Action Group where we will be able to speak with one of the vice presidents from Cal State San Bernardino, who's concerned. They're concerned about the fact that we have so many African American students in the Inland Empire, San Bernardino in particular, and the fact that they're not doing what they could be doing and should be doing educationally isn't something we're going to wring our hands and throw up the towel about. It's something people are meeting about, making plans about, and hopefully going to get more and more cooperation from each other to make that change. It's not an easy thing, but we discussed potentially San Bernardino having water, a lake under San Bernardino. The lake dried up. The economy is dried up, but those things are gonna change. I just have faith in them.
Wallace, the lake didn't dry up. The lake was covered over. The lake is now inland center. Urbita Hot Springs used to be a major attraction. In other words, my point is, mismanagement can be undone.
Okay.
And beyond that, you're right. I mean, don't get me wrong, San Bernardino is the best kept in Southern California, with all of the natural attributes, the strategic location of San Bernardino, the infrastructure, the improved infrastructure, as you mentioned, the freeways, so on and so forth. Being at the headwaters of the Santa Ana River, on and on. The bottom line is, you kind of, if you have vision, you kind of are in a position now where you can take advantage of the fact that everyone is down on San Bernardino and have the vision to acquire things strategically, cheaper than they normally should be available for, more readily available because no one's really competing with you, so on and so forth. And get yourself into a position for future generations and you later in life to prosper when San Bernardino makes its inevitable comeback.
Well, like we said,
that's what I would encourage everybody to focus on.
We'll talk about schools at the West Side Action Group meeting tomorrow, at the Northwest Project Redevelopment Area meeting on tomorrow night. I know that one of the things that's on the agenda is the receivership program that the city of San Bernardino has instituted. We have people in that community that are concerned that it appears that there's a monopoly available for the receiver position. And once again, as we discuss opportunity, homes, foreclosed homes, improving the look of property, having the ability to purchase blighted property and improvement, that's a responsibility on one hand and a problem, but it's also an opportunity on the other. And we have people who dwell on the problem part and miss the opportunity to the point of where they're willing to give, like in this case, a monopoly to someone else to come in and improve the city and take advantage of the profit that'll go along with that. And we cannot, I think in good conscience, allow that to happen. This is Empire Talks Back. I'm Wallace Allen, on the case for truth and justice with the right information to help improve the situation. We're going to take a very short break, and we'll be right back. We'll continue our conversation about the importance of elections, the importance of vision, the importance of participating in the development of your community, our country, our future. We'll be right back.
Publish your legal notice in West Side Story newspaper. For the best service and the best rates, call 909-384-8131. Publishing legal notices in the city and county of San Bernardino since 1990. West Side Story provides friendly expert service. Call 909-384-8131 to benefit from budget-friendly rates. Whether a fictitious business name, a name change, a divorce summons, or any other legal or public notice, call West Side Story newspaper 909-384-8131. 909-384-8131. That's 909-384-8131.
Did you know Cover California can help you find a low-cost quality health care plan that's absolutely right for you and your family? Did you know there's coverage for unexpected emergencies and everyday aches and pains? Did you know free preventative care like blood pressure and cholesterol screenings are also provided to stop small problems from getting bigger? Well, now you know.
Covered California. It's more than just health care. It's life care. Visit CoveredCA.com to find free, local, in-person help or enroll online by December 15th to have coverage by January 1st.
You're listening to KCAA, your good neighbor along the way.
Yes, sir, Reed. The only thing worse than a part-time lover is a part-time voter, a part-time citizen. You know, a part-time, it can't be part-time. You got to step up, folks. We've got to do this deal. This is to our benefit, to participate, to make things happen, to use your imagination to help solve problems. Every time we see a problem, hidden inside of that conversation, a problem is the solution. Believe me, folks. One of the things that we are looking for, Mr. Lilly, November 11th is Veterans Day. One of the issues that we have is treatment of our veterans. But let me say this. I know one veteran who's a great bass guitar player, and he is quite happy with the VA because the VA helped secure his housing for him after several years of arguing and complaining. And and the beautiful thing about it is all of the pain and anger that he was going through totally disappeared the day that he moved into his apartment. I mean, he's a smiler now. I don't know if you notice how much less bluesy his music sounds in the backdrop here. I'm speaking for our mood master. He has nothing but kind words for the VA, and I can appreciate that. But the fact is that there are so many veterans waiting for service because of a very simple reason. They don't have enough doctors. Jamal, I understand that there are approximately 1,200 patients per doctor, not just in terms of veterans, but in terms of veterans who are seeking help at the VA hospital. And that shortage of doctors seems to me to be something that we could solve. We, the United States, have military officers who are given a free education based on the idea that they will serve the military for a certain number of years before they are able to retire and move out. Many of them stay in for life. I'm speaking of West Point. I'm speaking of Annapolis, the Air Force Academy. Those three institutions are there for the specific reason of creating military officers. Now, if we are going to create military officers, and we understand the importance of that, I suggest that we also have a program to create military doctors. That seems simple, doesn't it? And the beauty of that is that unlike the military academies for creating the officers, where we actually had to put an institution together, to build West Point, to build Annapolis, to build the Air Force Academy, to create a program to where we are able to educate more doctors by giving people a free medical education, requiring them to provide service to the military, to the VA, before or while they're also involving themselves in private practice. I think it's a great idea. I think it's something that we could do, and I do believe that it would have a very positive effect on some of the least served and unserved people, students, minorities in particular, who have lost the idea of being able to become a medical doctor, to become a practicing nurse because of lack of funds. So I think that would solve the problem. I think it would do great things. What do you think, Mr. Lilly?
I think that that's an excellent idea. The doctor shortage has been described recently as a shortage within a shortage because of this lack of a pipeline that you're talking about to replace the existing doctors. We already have too few doctors per capita, and then beyond that, the doctors that are in existence are retiring at a more rapid rate than there are doctors coming out of med school and completing their residencies to replace them. So the problem's deepening. And when you talk about giving away such a valuable thing as a medical education and such an expensive thing, you're going to have people of the higher caliber competing for that, because usually those who are, on that track to being a medical student or whatnot, they've started early, they've remained diligent, and you're giving it away. Only the best of the best are going to be able to qualify and successfully compete for something like that. So those doctors will be the top-notch doctors, and the veterans should get first access to such doctors because they are the ones who put their lives on the line, and so on and so forth. And then the doctor completes his or her tour of duty or tour of service, then they can go out into the regular market, and you can be assured that that will be a feather in their cap. Their career will be enhanced by having participated in such a process. it's absolutely no downside to any of that, except the fact that some of these doctors might have to go into a combat zone and risk their own lives to provide the service that they're consigned to provide. But other than that, and that's not to gloss that over because that's very important and it should be considered carefully. But other than that, there would not be a downside to that.
Yeah, we need to give the doctors a much higher level of respect. We find, for instance, that's a great program, but it brings to mind, as you talked about doctors in the battlefield, the Doctors Without Borders and the bombings of the hospitals that they've been operating in recently. That type of thing needs to be penalized immediately and forthwith. The doctors should be considered almost holy men in the realm of a war zone. And anyone who does something to make less effective the doctor's presence should be penalized heavily. And I would be tremendously disappointed in our government if I found that we were involved in that type of bombing or that type of strategy to reduce.
Well, Wallace, now.
But I have to say it. I am prepared to be disappointed, but I'm also prepared to add other people to the concept of being disappointed by pointing out that this is not what America and Americans should be about. It's not what we say we're about. And anytime we find that it has been what we're about, we should have some type of action that we're going to demonstrate to prove that that's not us. That's not what we want to do. But you're right. Yeah.
Well, I agree about the should be, but I don't agree about that's not what Americana is about. I mean, why do we have the saying all's fair in love and war? Why do we have numerous?
Well, because those cliches sound good. Very, very seldom do people analyze the cliche. And I think you're very proper, in saying, we should.
How many doctors? How many doctors were bombed in Iraq? How many medical facilities were bombed in Syria? How many churches and places of worship are droned in the Middle East on an annual basis or on a regular basis?
Well, I think those are important questions.
These things occur, man. I mean, they're happening now.
And we should have answers. We should be able to denote the answer. We should be able to know the number, and we should feel the flame of pride or shame as we look at the number. But if we don't discuss it, we roll it over and we have a chance to kind of ignore it in the excitement of apparent victory or the emotional activity that goes on as we discuss these things. But we need to slow down and break the words down and find out what we're really talking about. We have too many opportunities to correct ourselves by actually analyzing what we've done, and I think that there's more of that needs to be done. We cheer for our winning side in the war. I remember being silly enough and as a child watching a cowboy movie, and when the cavalry came, I cheered because that was the emotional thing to do. We hadn't been informed and given the information about how we were mistreating the Native American. And I can think back on some of those movies and some of the attitudes that, make me ashamed. Same way I feel when I think about how I shot that little robin redbreast on the fence when I was a kid. And, why would I do that? Well, because I'd been told that would, make you a man and use your gun. And, well, I'm proud to say that as I shot that innocent bird, I felt like a total nobody. Not that, so given the exposure to these things, I think we can expect better of ourselves as we really look at what goes on. But I'm glad you agree with me about the prospects of how well a program like that would work for creating doctors, and we are going to approach our Congress people and see if they would agree, and we're going to see if we can get Mr. Pete Aguilar to come forward with some type of legislation that might encourage that activity. We're going to spend this last little bit of time. I don't know, Mr. Lilly, how you feel as you've looked at the little circus around Republican presidential candidate Ben Carson. But I think it's very interesting that we've got a black man who is being called a liar because of his description of participating in, a little violence as he was a young man. They want to prove it. They want him to prove it. They want him to prove that he's got street credibility. I just find that a little ironic. I'm not sure if I should laugh at it or what, because I have to deal with his response. He's a very interesting man. We're going to take a very short break, and when we come back, let's talk about how important is it for a president or a negotiator to be able to fool the people that he's negotiating with. Is it a benefit to be able to lie? Is it a detriment to not be able to lie? And when should we appreciate the lie? And when should we depreciate the lie? And all of that stuff. When is it American to lie and when is it not? I'm sure that it's important to lie because I've been lied to so many times by politicians that I trust. And once about finding their lie, that they lied, I understood it. And so we'll be back to discuss Mr. Ben Carson's potential lies right after this break.
Publish your legal notice in West Side Story newspaper. For the best service and the best rates, call 909-384-8131. Publishing legal notices in the city and county of San Bernardino since 1990. West Side Story provides friendly expert service. Call 909-384-8131 to benefit from budget-friendly rates. Whether a fictitious business name, a name change, a divorce summons, or any other legal or public notice, call West Side Story newspaper 909-384-8131. 909-384-8131. That's 909-384-8131.
The most diversified radio station on the dial, KCAA.
California. Listen, everybody all over the planet wants to be in California. And people in California who know the deal would like to be in the Inland Empire, the gateway to Southern California, the most beautiful place that you can imagine outside of, okay, I'm going to have to give it to Hawaii, okay? All right, I mean, I understand Hawaii is the bomb, the beautiful place. But Hawaii used to be California. No, okay, now I sound like a presidential candidate. Hawaii used to be part of California, and that's why it's so beautiful, and that's... no, it's not, but it's a nice place, but it's not California. California is hooked up. We like California, and you should want to be here. I'm a little concerned. Who's that to join us? Mr. Evans. Mr. Evans is on the phone just in time. Mr. Evans, Mr. Lilly, I'm a little concerned about Mr. Ben Carson's presidential run. I find that I find myself being a little, I don't know. I'm concerned about him, and I'm wondering, is it because he's a black man? I'm wondering. I usually have a different attitude about Republicans, but I find myself being a little protective of Ben. So I'm going to confess I probably have a little racial preference or a little racial soft spot for the guy. He doesn't seem to be like... Somehow I can't put him in the same category as our Supreme Court justice. I don't think he dislikes black people. I think that our Supreme Court justice dislikes black people. I think he dislikes being black. But I think Ben Carson's a little different. How he prides himself in his religion is kind of interesting, probably disturbing to some people. But then as he is indeed in a primary race where those things that he's saying is probably very important to those people who are going to be voting for him or against him in the Republican primary. But I'm just kind of, so I'm going to throw that up in the air and ask you gentlemen how you feel about Mr. Ben Carson. Let's start with you, Mr. Lilly.
Snake oil salesman, used car salesman, great surgeon, but he needs in his chosen profession where he's certainly quite more adept than he is at being a politician. You mentioned negotiation earlier. Yes, you have to be a good liar in order to negotiate to get what you want a lot of times, not always. But often the idea where you feign ignorance is tantamount to lying, where you act like you don't know something that you do know to gain an advantage. Also, the other thing is you want to know what the other side wants. In Carson's case, his inconsistencies about hiding his fellow white classmates in the science lab during the Martin Luther King protest riots, the whole business about the West Point thing, the whole business about being stuck up in a Burger King or some restaurant when he was in school, the story about the professor that told everyone we have to retake this test because the test was compromised somehow, and all the other students protested, but Carson stayed in the room to take the test again because he wasn't afraid of taking this ultra difficult test, and the professor rewarded him with $10 saying, I wanted to see who was honest. All these things, none of them check out. Many other things don't check out. But why did he put them in the book? He put them in the book because he knew people would be looking for a feel-good story. The idea that this person could pull himself up by the bootstraps and face all this adversity and come through with flying colors and show himself to be an exemplary person, student, professional, and everything else.
And plus, he didn't know he was going to run for president when he wrote that book.
People want that. And that's why he did those things, so he could put himself in a position to be considered a civic leader of some sort.
Okay.
In this case, with a national profile.
That's good. And he didn't write that book with the idea that he didn't write that book with the idea he was running for president. Mr. Evans, your take on Mr. Carson.
Good morning.
Good morning. How are you doing? Mr. Evans.
Well, on the subject you just mentioned, I'm thinking about a book title. I don't know if this is accurate, but it certainly will stir the pot. The book would be called The Return of Uncle Tom.
Wow. Boy, am I surprised. I almost fell out of my chair, Leonard. You're suggesting that Ben Carson is best wrapped up in a book titled The Return of Uncle Tom? Did I hear you correctly?
I think a better title would be The Remaking of Uncle Tom.
But Uncle Tom is definitely in that title.
Mm-hmm.
And you are referring, of course, to the same Mr. Ben Carson that we're talking about. I hadn't even. And why would you?
He didn't answer, Wallace. He didn't answer.
Okay, Mr. Evans, go ahead.
Well, listen. On the other hand, Dr. Carson, based on what he has stated and how he's approached things, is a very thoughtful person. He really thinks through solutions. Now, if that's truly what he would do as president, or if he would be more inclined to follow the party line and just rubber stamp stuff. Is that what you're getting at here? Would he be a potential president?
Well, I mean, what I'm trying to get at is what your impression would be about what your impression is of Mr. Carson as he is being examined, over-examined, or sideways examined for the position.
Well, he's being asked to be in charge of a vote that doesn't float. It's called the Republican Party.
Well, now, okay, well,
and that's always a tough job.
Well, let me say this. Let me see this. In terms of one of the problems with the Republican Party, we've always said that they don't have any room for minorities, blacks in particular. As we look at the obvious room that it appears that they're giving Mr. Carson. Of course, right. Now there are those who say, well, this is all an anomaly. As soon as the elections actually start, we'll find that people who are willing to say...
That's always been my point, that if you look for people who are willing to help you, you'd be amazed at what you might find. And here's the case, the entire Republican Party is supporting a black candidate for president. Now, who would have predicted that?
Well, now what we're wondering, and some are saying, it's one thing to answer a poll and support someone, and it's something else to actually walk in and place the vote. And so the question is, are we really seeing support for Mr. Carson, or are people kind of playing a game? As we look at his opponents, they seem to be ready to take him fairly seriously.
That's right.
Yeah, I mean, so I don't know. Do these stories, as Mr. Lilly said, we're talking about a book where all of these anecdotes were taken from, and a book written by Mr. Carson with the idea that he was to encourage...
Well, he raised himself up.
Well, not just raise himself up, but to encourage others to feel that, there's no obstacle that they should be so afraid of that they can't confront and attempt to work around.
That's right.
And so making up a few things to embellish your story is one thing. Are we suggesting maybe that as he wrote that book, he was pushing one thing, and now as people are examining the issues of the book, that maybe he should kind of, what would your response be, Mr. Lilly, if they were asking you these things and indeed you had embellished them? Were you thinking he should simply say, hey, I put together some nonfiction in terms of it happened to somebody, but it's fiction in terms of it happening to me? Is just a composite of things that could have happened with the idea of encouraging people?
Well, right now it may be fiction, but that doesn't mean it can't become reality. And what he's talking about, his real message that I see is the power of adjusting your thinking. Because he stated in one interview that when he was younger, he had the wrong approach, the wrong idea about things. But he was afforded an opportunity, he got a break, and a chance to turn himself around. Well, everybody is in this position, whether or not they wind up getting in trouble or not. They have the opportunity to change how they're thinking and to change the results in their life. And that's the message that he's offering.
Well, let me ask you a point-blank question. Would you vote for Mr. Carson, both of you, and tell me why, yes or no?
No. This election is not about the president, it's about the Supreme Court, the way that I see it.
And you think that...
No, Wallace. I wouldn't vote for him because he's not an effective enough liar.
I understand.
It's interesting that you say that, Mr. Lilly, because that means that it would be less likely that people would expect him to lie, which may make him a more effective liar.
Well,
I understand you.
But yeah, and how he comes out of this may have something to do with that.
In other words, what he's done is a selling tactic, which is to begin by getting
let me ask this question.
Underestimate you.
Let me ask you this question. Do you think that he will show up in Iowa well? Do you think that that there is going to be a follow-through in the actual polls that go along with this polling of
I'll have to duck that one and give you the answer that they give.
Okay.
We'll let the voters decide. The voters will determine that. Everybody's been on TV for weeks now trying to predict what's going to happen. Nobody knows. the voters.
No one knows. But Wallace, I would say yes, he would. 2 reasons. Number one, Iowa's the proverbial swing state. The other thing is the caucusing process is personal. And this guy does well in the focus group thing, prayer breakfast environment, that kind of thing, where he can really resonate with the hearts and minds of people. And I think that he will show up well on the Republican side.
Let me ask you this.
For those 2 reasons.
He will probably show up well to the religious voters with his concept of who built the pyramids. Hold on. The building.
Everything. So if Ben Carson or whoever, whatever Republican gets, and then want to cut everything.
Let me ask you this, Leonard.
Says that you float all boats by draining the lake.
The idea of the pyramids.
I think that's impossible to defend.
I hope your receiver works on your phone, because the speaker part definitely does. Are you able to look at his statement about the pyramids?
That they have to push that agenda that doesn't add up. Now,
okay, we'll get to ask that question, I guess, next week. Joseph, give me the phones back. Okay. Thank you guys very much. We're in the last minute of Empire Talks Back. We don't know exactly what Mr. Ben Carson's going to do, but I would like to once again encourage everybody. There's 2 important meetings in the city of San Bernardino tomorrow. West Side Action Group at the Boys Club at noon, 1180 West 9th Street. And at 6:30, there's a meeting at the 1505 West Highland Avenue, the Family Life Center, for the Project Area Committee, where you'll be talking about the future of receiverships. And Empire Talks Back was brought to you by Covered California, brought to you by West Side Story Newspaper and the Improve Association. See you next week under 2 circumstances, the good Lord's willing and the creek don't rise. God bless you. See you then.
NFL Sunday in progress. Let's go right to the scoreboard. The Panthers leading the Packers in that big showdown in Carolina, 17-7. Cam Newton's got a touchdown run and a pass to Greg Olsen for a score. Aaron Rodgers to Richard Rodgers for the touchdown for Green Bay there in the second quarter. The Patriots are shutting out the Redskins in the second, 17-0. Brady to Edelman, and the Garrett Blount a rushing touchdown for New England. Lamar Miller is taking one to the house. Bills still leading the Dolphins in the second, 9-7. It's the Saints 21 and the Titans 10. Drew Brees just ran one in. You don't see that very often, but they lead 21-10 in the second. Vikings leading the Rams 10-9.